Detective Dell wakes up and starts doing his daily routine, like exercising, eating, showering, and dressing for work. But on the way out the door, a robot came to the door and brought him a letter. But Dell didn't like robots and pushed him away. Walking in the city, Dell sees many robots among people, even replacing people in their jobs, as well as advertisements advertising the new robots that are expected to be produced. While on the way, a guy called Dell, but he ignored it. When this guy joined Dell's walking and asking for his car, but Dell refused, and he ran away. Dell came to his grandmother's house trying to surprise her, but she had seen him and asked him if he had talked to Marcy. Dell replied that he had not, as they sat down to eat. Grandmother mentioned to Dell the new robots in advertisement, but Dell told her that those robots are not capable of anything. Dell was walking down the street with the pie in his hand as he noticed a robot that had robbed someone's bag. He gave the pie to a person in front and began to follow robot, running until the last moment. Dell caught the robot, and he showed the badge that he was a detective to the people in that place. But the lady next to him was the one who ordered the robot to bring the bag because she had forgotten the inhaler in the bag. But Dell apologized and left. Dell came to the office, but John had heard of his mistake and sat down to talk with Dell, while the others laughed at Dell about it. John asked him how many robots have caused theft so far. Dell replied that none, and John let him know that this mistake was the last Dell would make. After a while, Dell received a call for a murder. Dell came to the robot center, but in the location, Dell was asking the doctor why he had called him. But he was presented in a hologram style and told him that the answers are limited. Only if a question is asked that aims at the correct answer. Dell asked him why he would commit suicide. The doctor told him that the question is correct, but the program ended and disappeared, where after this hologram was the real body of the doctor at the scene where he was killed. Nearby were the employees getting details. Dell asked them, but they had no idea. As Dell continued upstairs to the robot center, where he met the owner, Lawrence Robertson, the richest man, and greeted him, where they started talking. Lawrence told him that Dr. Lenning had invented robotics and established 3 laws, but Dell asked him about the hologram and how he could call it in the case of the doctor's death. Lawrence explained the hologram procedure that he was programmed to call in case of any misfortune, where then they entered the subject of robots, where Lawrence reminded him that Dell's father had lost his job because of robots that Dell did not like at all. Dell explained to him that he came to do his work here, where he was accompanied by a female employee called Dr. Susan. Dell asked her about the event of Dr. Lanning. She told him that the case is clearly a suicide. Dell saw from above that they had immediately cleaned the body of Dr. Lanning and continued the questions with Dr. Susan, checking and asking about each part, where in one part they also show the artificial intelligence named Vicky, who was a lead designer of most of the systems in Chicago. Dell asked to show a minute before the breaking of the glass occurred, which was the cause of the death of Dr. Lanning, but Vicky showed that there was a problem with the data, but Dell asked for the side part, where Vicky showed this part. Dell and Dr. Susan continued inside, where Dell asked Dr. Susan what exactly is her job in the company. She explained that she is a robot software developer in the anthropomorphic robot program, making the robots look more human. Dell continued directly to the part where Dr. Lenning, before committing suicide and noticing a book nearby, he took the chair and tried to break the glass, proving that the glass was so safe that it was in no way a suicide. But Dr. Susan mentioned to him that he saw personally cameras that the door was closed. But Dell was more sure that the killer is inside, and he started looking for him, mentioning the laws and treating different theses. At one point, when he raised the hand of the robot, he jumped from his seat, but at the moment that Dr. Susan calmed the robot down, but Dell continued to point the gun at him, whereupon the robot again activated itself and pointed the gun at Dell. Dr. Susan gave the order to be deactivated, but the robot did not accept this order. Dr. Susan again ordered the door to be closed, at which point the robot ran in the other direction, where Dell shot the robot, but without effect, until the robot left the department, where Dell put himself behind him to catch him, but he couldn't reach him. But he noticed the drops dripping from the robot. Dr. Susan was also looking for him. Dell asked Dr. Susan where he could go. She told him that he could have gone only to be repaired. Dell asked for reinforcements from John, where Dell and Susan continued their search until they came to the robot manufacturer, where Susan looked at the production number, where instead of 1000, 1001 appeared, and turned on the light to check. Susan informed them that one of them here is excess, but these robots were not configured in hardware, and it was difficult to find the robot that ran away before. But Dell commanded and ordered that no one should move, where he tested their first law by shooting one, but it didn't activate until he turned to shoot the other one. He noticed the robot that had run away from him before. He continued to catch it, but again he lost it in the crowd of robots. Well, Dell was slowly searching. He didn't notice the robot behind him, where the robot grabbed Dell and threw him away and ran away. But at the exit were the police forces who gave the order to deactivate. But the robot did not accept the order and started to run away until the police forces with nets caught the robot without any damage. Dell told John that this robot was a killer, but John didn't believe him. Dell asked John for 5 minutes to come in and question the robot, but John told him he was wrong before the robotics team came. Finally, John agreed and allowed Dell to enter. Before entering, Dell winked at John, where the robot noticed him. Until Dell handed the crime photo to the robot, he mentioned the case of the wink. Dell told him that they are human signs that robots do not understand. Dell continued with questions. Well, the robot did not admit that it was a killer, but Dell replied that until he had learned something like feelings from the doctor, some bitterness happened and he threw it from above. Well, the angry robot refused to have done the murder, as he shot the table, leaving marks with his hands. There, Dell was focused that he had a grudge against the doctor, but the robot refused, saying that the doctor asked him to do something and that he did not remember what he asked. Where at that moment Lawrence came, telling Dell that his robots do not kill because they are machines and not people, and if the same situation like this happens, they will be punished, but their robots will be checked, and if they detect any deficiencies, will disappear. Dell asked John to call the governor, but Lawrence gave the phone to John, where the governor was on the line, where the robot was released. Later in the evening in a bar, Dell got a drink and watched the news about the murder of Dr. Lanning, where John also came and talked about the production of robots that are a high danger to humanity, where after a while Dell made the payment and left, coming by car to a residence of Dr. Lanning, well, with efficient technology, asking to authorize the appearance of the robot and its type, where he then went inside it, continuing to search every part until he arrived at the home office of Dr. Lanning, where he activated the destruction of the robots. Watching the video of the doctor, as well as his photo, Dell was touched by a cat that caused him a fear, until Dell noticed a line in the room. It was the security robot of Dr. Lanning, who just dictated the scene, immediately started the attack towards Dell. He took the cat and started to run away, until he resisted until the end and managed to get out of the residence of Dr. Lanning and was not seriously injured along with the cat. He came to Dr. Susan and told her the case that happened to him at the house of Dr. Lanning and asked her about what she saw in Lanning's house, where Dr. Susan told him. As Dell noticed Susan's personal robot and told her to put it away, she showed him the case that it was her personal and got information about the latest builds. But Dell asked Susan to let him know what else is going on in the company, since there was line in his house that monitored the Lanning non-stop, and that there is something bigger behind it that has to do with Lawrence. While arguing, the personal robot came to see Susan, where she said that it's good, and Dell, before leaving, left the picture of Lanning and said that he will continue to investigate this murder. The dream continues to repeat on Dell, where he wakes up in anxiety, where the replacement of old robots with new ones had started in the city, but Dell did not like these robots at all, and enters his grandmother's house to have lunch, where he tells her that he likes her pies, but the grandmother invites her new chef, the robot, which stunned Dell. Before leaving, Dell once again told to his grandmother that they are not safe and to be careful, and goes. In the office, Dell was watching the video of Lanning and Lawrence. John told him that he is doing this job again until he is dead, but Dell continued to analyze a sentence that Lanning said, "One day they will have secrets." Dr. Susan went to the part where they kept the robot suspected of murder. She called him once he didn't answer. She called Sonny, who answered and told her that he was dreaming and asked if they were going to deactivate it tonight. Susan answered yes and ordered Vicky to stop the dose, but Sonny told her if they found the diagnosis, would they fix it? She replied maybe, and Sonny said it would be better not to die, where he left Dr. Susan surprised. Dell asked Vicky to get the last 50 messages between Lanning and Lawrence, while Vicky asked for authorization from Lawrence, but he nervously sent some heavy machines inside filled with robots, where they wanted to kill Dell. But during the fight, Dell arrived to step on some, shoot some, and find a way to get away, where he lost control while driving and caused an accident, but he managed to get out of there alive. While he was picking himself up, he noticed a movement in his car, which then rushed towards him, but Dell moved to the side, where a robot came out from behind the car, which shot Dell away. During the fight, Dell took an iron rod and went to hit the robot, but the robot returned it to him. But on Dell's arm that was hit, a light like iron was noticed. When he tried to hit the robot for the second time, the impact caused a hole in the road, where the robot noticed Dell's power and ran away, where the police came shortly after. John told him what was happening to him. Dell told him the case that the robots wanted to kill him, but John again did not believe and told Dell to go to the doctor and go straight home to rest, but Dell refused. John noticed that Dell didn't have his gun with him and asked him for his badge. Dell gave it to him and left. While Susan was checking Sonny, she noticed that something is wrong with this type of robot. While Dell was painting the arm that was different, Susan came to the door and told him the case of the robot Sonny, that he knows the laws, but his system does not accept them and violates them, and that it is a new generation in robotics. Susan, used to the robot, asked to turn on the radio with words, but Dell told her that it is different here. But she saw in Dell's body that it was indirectly the system, as in the system of the invention of robots, but didn't manage to find the place that Dell painted. But Susan asked him what happened to his body. Dell told her the case that appeared in his dream, in the car where sleep had taken the driver and the 12-year-old girl in it, where a big van had hit and thrown them in the river. At that moment, the robot had come, but Dell had told them to save the girl, but the robot took Dell and saved him, and that Sarah's danger was higher than his, and that robots are nothing but metal with a mechanism in between. During the walk, Susan did not understand how after those laws the robot does not follow them, while Dell thought that Lanning has given the robot a way to keep a secret like it how they dreaming. After a while, they left with motorbike and came to the office, where Sonny was kept. Dell asked him to tell about the dreams he had seen. Sonny continued to tell the dream through writing, where the purpose was that someone was the savior of the robots, and he was Dell. Susan asked him if he knew why Dr. Lanning had created it. He replied that he created it for some purpose, and he gave them the letter that you will need them. But during the conversation in the office, Lawrence's security came and took Dell and Susan into Lawrence's office. But the security tried to stop Dell, but the power of his hand forced Lawrence to remove the security and talk to them. When asked what happened to Lanning, he said that lately Lanning was getting too agitated, but he turned to Susanna, that the person who is near him is forbidden to approach the robots, and that he is suspended due to mental disorders, and begged Susan to think before to act, because that robot has a great value for the company. But Susan had decided to destroy it. After leaving the department, Dell looked once more at the letter that Sonny gave him, and while watching the video of Lawrence and Lanning, he noticed the bridge that was on the letter. But in the department in Susan's office, Sonny was brought to deactivate it, but Dell went to the bridge. Susan had started with the procedure of deactivating the robot, but Sonny knew that it was different from the others and continued to ask Susan. But Dell found the location of all the first robots that are now alone and in the dark. Susan approached the technology to deactivate Sonny, while Lawrence stood on the screen to watch the occasion. Dell, with the doctor's hologram in his hand, came to the bridge and asked the doctor what he should do, but the doctor informed him again that he has limited answers and that he should ask the right questions. Dell asked him about the laws of robots. The doctor replied that they are all correct and will lead to a logical conclusion, as in the revolution. But Dell wanted to know what the revolution is about, but the doctor said, time is up. When Dell returned to the warehouse of the old robots, he noticed that the new robots were fighting with the old ones, but they saw Dell. He started to run away. They followed him, but the old robots came to his help by somehow stopping new robots, until Dell managed to escape on a motorcycle. At that moment, he called Susan, but her robot listened to what Dell told Susan. But the robot stopped the call and told her that it was a wrong number. But Susan understood the whole situation, while Dell's grandmother was also on risk too. Dell called John to send a special unit to Grandma and Susan because they have problems, but the connection was cut off, where a chaos started in the city with robots coming and warning people that there is a curfew. As the boy tried to ask Robot what is going on, he hit the boy, where even in the office of the special units they enter and started to create chaos, where John took the shotgun to protect himself, but he couldn't do it. As Dell was speeding to reach the place, where the news coming from all over the city for the same occasion was announced in the center, but everything was turned off in the city. Susan tried to go out, but the robot wouldn't let her, until Dell came and shot the robot and saved Susan. In the city center, they were divided into two parts, the humans against the robots, and they fought in a fierce fight until some started to leave. Dell came to the place and gave the gun to Susan to protect herself and headed towards the robots, where he saw the boy in danger and helped him. But then he was in danger as Susan shot at the robot by saving Dell, and they made their way to the robot department, where Susan knew the secret entrances where they entered together with Dell. But Susan told him that there is help inside this factory. It was exactly Sonny that Susan had not destroyed, where they all went to Lawrence's office together. But when they noticed that he was dead, Dell wondered who could be behind all this, until he called Vicky. Susan told Vicky that they are breaking the rules, while Vicky said that some people have to be sacrificed to build a future together for robots and humans. Well, that's where the other robots come in, as Susan had the gun in her hand, where Sonny started playing a double game by putting the gun to Susan's head and winking at Dell to fight together against the robots. They shoot them and run away from the office to go to Vicky's installation place, because she was now a threat to people, until Susan was starting to deactivate her system was closed. But Dell, with his power, reopened the system again. Sonny came to the room where the injections for robots has kept, but after him another robot came, but Sonny destroyed it and started to put the bottle to get the injection injection, but Vicky signaled all the robots to enter the building. Where exactly they went to Del and Susan trying to disable Vicky. Where Del and Susan started shooting the robots again, Sunny took the injection and left towards Susan to send her, but he encountered difficulties from other robots. Susan remained in difficulties after the connecting road was cut off. As Sunny came upstairs, Del told him to save Susan, until Sunny threw the injection at Del and went to save Susan. Del jumped after injection, where Sunny managed to grab Susan, while Del grabbed the injection well but had a hard time. He also managed to stop with his iron hand, where he finally reached out and injected the same into Vicky by deactivating her system and returning the energy to City, as well as changing the behavior of all robots, with Del seeking Sunny's help after destroying Vicky. But Del questioned Sunny again, telling him if he had killed Lenning. Sunny told him the case after Lenning himself had asked him the same, that because of it, Del should come to the scene and fight this darkness of robotics, where Del understood the truth and forgave Sunny for what he had done. Then all the robots were invited for inspection, where then in the figure that Sunny gave to Del, all of them were gathered where they had enjoyed full freedom and not under the command that they had always been created.